Okay, so a little reiteration without irritation, and try to spark your interest on some of the challenges that individuals with rare disease confront that might spark your interest for developing solutions. So we heard a little bit about this from Kevin, but just to reiterate, what is a rare disease? It's a condition that affects fewer than 200,000 individuals, at least that's how it's viewed in the US, or fewer than 5 people per 10,000, or fewer than 1 in 2,000 people in Europe. Rare diseases are also known as orphan diseases or orphan indications when one considers drug development. And there are roughly 7,000 such diseases, collectively affecting 1 in 10 Americans, or overall worldwide 30 million people. So I'm sorry, in the US, 30 million people. About 350 million people globally are affected by rare diseases, and many of them are life-threatening or additionally importantly, chronically debilitating, so very amenable to a variety of solutions that you might think about. We need to have an improved understanding of rare diseases, which is key, especially with regards to accurate and timely diagnoses, and this is a recurring theme in the context of rare diseases. One of the concepts in rare diseases is really the diagnosis burden. The length of time from symptoms that an individual may actually endure to the time when they're actually diagnosed with that disease is often prolonged. So clearly, technology solutions that will enable the ability to put disparate pieces of information to improve more rapidly the underlying diagnosis, the identification of biomarkers, a variety of approaches to try to better understand and integrate information to come up with diagnostic criteria, diagnoses for people who suffer from these symptoms comprised as a rare disease is clearly needed. So rare diseases are often genetic. In fact, 80% of them are. They're often present in early childhood to young adults. So that population is to a greater extent chronically debilitated and afflicted with rare diseases. Typically, individuals with rare diseases exhibit a high level of symptom complexity with multiple comorbidities, multiple needs, and high disease burden. Again, technology solutions that can address specific complexity of disease, symptom management, and the implications for care providers and how to ease their burden of caring for individuals with these conditions is also something to think about. What's particularly noteworthy with this time delay in diagnosis is that the average healthcare practitioner is actually not often familiar with these diseases, so that access to knowledgeable care is often difficult. So once again, technology solutions that will increase the ability of knowledgeable individuals or knowledgeable information to enhance the ability to diagnose closer to home or more rapidly allow for referrals based on certain predefined markers might actually facilitate care. Information is scarce and it's difficult to access. There's no centralized repository or information or Google search engine, although there have been efforts to do that. There are none that are currently really largely in play. So again, technology lends itself to really enhancing the ability to find this information and make it available to both practitioners, to patients and their families, and to communities at large on both a local and a global scale. So the diagnosis is a challenge. So solutions for diagnosing symptoms are often hidden behind more common illnesses, again leading to diagnostic delays. So tools that can really try to integrate some of that, get around that diagnostic dilemma might be of import. There are a number of challenges that are faced by patients and caregivers, and we'll hear from experts in specific rare diseases subsequently. But I've just tried to highlight here some recurring concepts that might spark your interest for ways in which you might think about how technology could address these particular problems. Access to support services and resources, again, not centralized, often require a lot of legwork to find that information for caregivers as well as patients that are afflicted. So an easy way to find that information might be very helpful. Time lost from work and school, how that could be taken into account, how people can actually be at school while not at school, or be at work while not at work in a virtual environment. There are often surgical interventions that are required, so certainly opportunities for hardware development, and we'll hear from some of our colleagues in that regard. Lack of practical support, lack of knowledge of poorly understood disease, as I mentioned, often bedbound or impaired, so a sense of isolation can occur. So a variety of tools, virtual reality, that take people out of their isolation and put them in places that they really would like to be, but may not be in a position to get there, can be considered. So rare diseases also present challenges to healthcare professionals. We talked about the difficulty in diagnosing, access to information, access to diagnostic tools that help you both diagnose and monitor patients with rare diseases, sufficient time to complete workup. These are often take quite a bit of time to get all the information and the results of testing, whether there was a way to accelerate that process. Measurement tools to track a variety of symptoms and signs that we'll hear about from some of our expert colleagues in specific rare diseases, and the whole referral process from primary care to specialists, how to develop programs or systems that would accelerate or have in place that communication process so that it is not vulnerable to time delay. And then finally, and a whole other spectrum, are improved financial models of care. We've all read about how debilitating disease and chronic illnesses can really financially ruin families and individuals afflicted. So those were just a couple of teasers I wanted to make.